In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Rock, paper, scissors, go. Did you ever play that? Rock, paper, scissors.
Rochambeau?
Rochambeau.
Yeah, that's the fancy name for it. It's called Rochambeau.
Oh, man. And what are the origins of that?
You know, there was a Count Rochambeau, as I recall, who was involved in one of the, American Revolutionary War, this French Indian War, or something like that. One of those wars that they had to determine the modern Canada and United States eventuality. And it Count Rochambeau. So I don't know if it had something to do with him or not. I just know that's what they call rock, paper, scissors in French is Rochambeau.
So Canada lost rock, paper, scissors is what you're telling me.
Yeah, that's why. There's your reason for the Louisiana Purchase right there.
Okay, fair enough.
But back then it was probably just had scissors been invented? Wasn't it just rocks and paper or rock papyrus
sword?
Bug. Yeah, right. Exactly. What is the original version of rock? Because rock is sort of like it's the constant. It was here already.
It was probably cannonball, beaver pelt, knife. I don't know.
That almost sounds like a game of Clue from the pioneer days.
It was Colonel Mustard with the beaver pelt.
Yeah, it was Colonel Beaver Pelt with the knife
inside the covered wagon.
Exactly, the chuck wagon.
This episode brought to you by Elon Musk and the letter X.
Oh boy, everybody's favorite thing to say former. Are we over the formerly Twitter yet, or are we still doing that?
I don't think we're ever going to be over Twitter.
I don't either. I think we mentioned that on a previous episode. Like when you buy something that a verb was literally coined because of, you probably should stick with the name. But I think that was his way of showing us all just exactly how much money he has and how much he could care less about things. So, And I don't really use Twitter that much. So what do I care?
Yeah, kids, if you haven't listened to episode 2 yet, circle back.
You know, there's literally a namesake. There is a thing attached to every single anniversary that a couple can have. Like with most people, you'd think it's 5th, 10th. It's the speed limit anniversaries, 5th, 10th, 20th, 25th, 30th, 35th, whatever. They've got, and I ran into somebody one time who knew a lot of them. They must have worked in a Hallmark store or baked cakes for a living or something that would get you familiar with that, because it was so random. It was like, oh yes, so-and-so is celebrating their 17th wedding anniversary. And this guy piped up and he was just like, 17th, that's the piriform anniversary, I do believe. And it's just like, what the hell? The 17th anniversary isn't a thing. There's no namesake attached. He's like, oh yes. And for that matter, what the hell is piriform? It's pear-shaped. It's the pear-shaped anniversary. So this is the anniversary where we celebrate both couples just starting to get fat enough to look like a fruit that comes from a tree.
I love you. Now here's a quince.
It's just like, I love a good quince. I had some quince jelly recently.
Did you really?
That I found. Yeah, grocery outlet's awesome for that stuff. Sometimes they get the stuff that nobody else wanted, so it was quince jelly. It was okay. Well, it's about the only flavor of Pop-Tart they don't make, quince, so they can have it now. And they should do like little snakes on the top with the frosting. That would be awesome. See, these folks at Kellogg's need to start getting a lot more original with their Pop-Tart.
Can we get Jerry Seinfeld on the phone, please?
See, Jerry, I'm mad at Jerry Seinfeld right now because, again, I believe that everything belongs to everybody, so all ideas should be fairly exchanged. But I'm still petulant enough as a westernized person to know that he stole my unfrosted thing, because that's been a thing for me for years. Like, this goes all the way back to not only my ex-wife, who I was embattled with over frosted and unfrosted for 22 years, but like girlfriends that I had long before her, or at least prior to her. Because I like unfrosted Pop-Tarts. That's what I grew up with, and that's what I prefer, because it's simple. It's like overly sweet, like propylene glycol flavored like strawberry or grape or whatever it is inside of a pastry crust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Now from now on, forevermore, whenever I give my argument for unfrosted, that's exactly what everybody's going to say. Oh, Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah, well.
I would say that being a child of the 80s, I grew up with the unfrosted because my parents just associated frosted with dessert. And they were like, you can't have a frosted whatever for breakfast. It'll rot your teeth out.
Yeah, it's funny where some parents drew the line. Like my mother drew the line with Lucky Charms. We could have any other sweetened cereal we wanted under the sun. Cocoa Puffs, Fruit Loops, Apple Jacks, whatever. She drew the line at Marbits. She drew the line at that's what they call the marshmallows in those General Mills cereals. But going back to the Pop-Tart, the reason why I preferred and grew up with unfrosted is because I didn't like Pop-Tarts as much as I liked Tostettes, which was the off-brand. It was like the knockoff. And it's not unusual for me to like a knockoff better than the original, because that's just the way I ride. So I grew up with Tostettes, and Tostettes, they didn't have a frosted variety. They probably do now if they even still make the damn things. And then the frosting on those, that's not frosting. That's like, it's like glue or caulk that's actually hardening. It's not frosting.
It's like
so
clay.
I don't understand. Yeah, so it's kind of like people say, well, they're not even marshmallows in the cereal. Well, technically they're not. They're called Marbits. So we need to come up with the actual name for the frosting on a Pop-Tart, because it's not frosting. We all know that. I just ordered my girlfriend's birthday cake today, actually. We're going out of state, and I placed the order with an out-of-state bakery. This is the first time I've ever done that. 50-year-old man, never placed like a prepaid order with an out-of-state bakery. This was a big thing to check off my list today.
This is a fancy cake. What did you get? Please tell.
Well, I can't. I just hope she doesn't listen to this. She's not around right now, so that's
she doesn't thing.
Listen
sometimes
to this
at all.
Sometimes she follows us down here and eavesdrops. She doesn't listen to this.
She doesn't subscribe.
No, she's very supportive of my activities online and otherwise. She's, she has to if she wants to keep getting birthday cakes. Actually, my ex-wife was terribly unsupportive of everything I did in the artistic arena.
All right, let's not talk about the ex-wife. Let's talk about the cake. What kind of cake?
No, I'm just saying the cake was. She's a Huckleberry fan. She loves Huckleberries. She's obsessed with Huckleberries. So I found a place. We are going to the land of Huckleberries, and so I found a place that makes a filled Huckleberry cake. She's getting a confetti cake, a white cake with confetti, like the sprinkles shit that's inside of it to make it all sparkly pretty, with a Huckleberry filling and a lavender vanilla frosting.
Whoa, that sounds good.
And it only set me back like $60. I was
with shipping.
I made the worst mistake of all. I ordered the cake and we went through the whole thing, and then they gave me the price. And I told her at the end, I was like, okay, don't don't shock me here. Last year, she has her nickname. She's nicknamed after a lemur. So last year I got her a cake and I had to make it in the shape of a lemur. And they did a pretty good job. It kind of looked like a bat more than it did a lemur, a bat with a tail, but it was still good. That was red velvet with raspberry filling last year.
Was last year's cake
too.
It sounds good. Was last year's cake out of market as well, or?
No, last year's cake was in market and we took it out of market. And so we learned a lesson, because when you move an in-market cake across state lines, if it's more than one layer, the top layer has a tendency to like dislodge slightly or slide. And so we learned our lesson last year.
I thought you were going to say you have to like report it to the local authorities, and some guy like Boss Hogg shows up.
There probably is some kind of taxation
to sample the cake with you.
I'm going to get a leaflet. I'm going to get one of those W's they always talk about from or what is it? one of those numbers from the IRS. The IRS has a million forms for a million things. And so watch, I'll say this, and somebody will be listening from Fresno or Salt Lake on the auditor's line. They'll be like, oh, well, that's a 1218. And so I'm going to get like a 1218 R, or a CK for cake from transporting an out-of-state, in-state cake over state lines. That's a 6% excise tax. And they weigh the fraud. They consider the weight of the buttercream. And yeah.
They are on to you now, Jack Hansen. They are on to you
I know,
now. Anyway. I could just see the lady at the bakery in Montana going, what's it going to cost? Sir, you're ordering a cake from out of state. I don't think you're too concerned with the cost right now.
Yeah, I know. But like their cost was an issue. Because I was willing to go just so high. Because some of these cake places can get bougie. You know that.
Oh, totally.
They have all these shows on TV now where, like that Buddy Guy. Did you ever see that show? I don't.
Oh, yeah. Cake Boss?
When I was married, my ex-wife loved to watch all those shows. So I got in on reality, television, like a lot. I watched a lot of those shows. A lot of shows that never, like Wars. Oh, my God, I'm ashamed to even admit I've ever seen 10 seconds of one. I watched seasons of those things with my ex-wife. New girlfriend, not into it so much. So thank God I'm checked out from that.
That was one of probably the most exorbitant things that I ever did in terms of the snack dessert category was we ordered some cannolis from Buddy's Bakery.
Did you really?
And they're good.
Oh, wow.
They're
like
so
the actual
good.
Buddy's Bakery?
Yeah, like the one in Hoboken, New Jersey. And you can order, I think like during the holidays, they have like different cakes. It's kind of like it's kind of more of a down home version of Harry.
I don't know.
So, like one of those catalogs that only comes out around the holidays, and it's like,
that thing,
a partridge in a pear tree with some jerky. Okay, yeah, $120. That's not too bad for a partridge in a pear tree and some jerky. Or a cheese ball? That's not too bad, is it?
By the way, Michael, did you know that originally the 5 golden rings were 5 jerky beef, but they changed it along the way because, of course, the Christian faith didn't want a reference to jerking at all, so they got rid of it.
I thought you were going to say it had something to do with Hanukkah. And we don't eat pork around here.
One of my, speaking of Hanukkah and pork, great legend, well, not legend, that's going too far, but great Jewish comedian, loved him, Kevin Pollak. I think I've mentioned him already on the podcast before. I like his material. His old stuff is dynamite. He had a great thing way back when, late 80s, early 90s, when the Burger King rolled out the new bagel sandwich from Burger King, the bagel breakfast sandwich.
No, really?
And he's just like, what do you think the choices are? Ham, bacon, sausage.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you think there'd be one Jew on the board of directors of Burger King going, hey,
they can't have lox at Burger King. It just doesn't quite translate in like Tulsa, Oklahoma to have lox on your bagels. So, my wife and I always have this conversation every Hanukkah because she is Jewish and makes us latkes. And if you've never had a latke, they are probably some of the best. They're just potato pancakes, right?
Now, hold on a second. Let me get this straight. Your wife is Jewish.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah. Really?
Yeah. So
how have I known you for this long and not known that?
I don't know, man. You must not be a very good friend, but...
You always find out about the Jewish people last, too.
Every year, we have this conversation about latkes, and we're like, well, what do you serve with them? Because they really are good. But, I mean, they're kind of just like fancy hash browns, right? And so you can't really make a meal out of hash browns. And people try to zhuzh them up and doll them up and everything, but they lack a protein. And I was like, what are we going to have, like pork chops with them or what? And she just laughed. We still celebrate some of the Jewish holidays in our household.
So it's polytheology in her home then, probably. So, okay. Wow, that's really interesting. Like, I never knew that. But that gives you an opportunity to have some different foods, it sounds like.
So the next time somebody says, what are we going to have with latkes? Say, how about pork chops?
One of the most perplexing things for a northerner as in a person who's from the, above the Mason-Dixon line or out west in the United States.
A Yankee, if you will.
Yeah, is exactly. Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but you said it, because it's probably Yankeeism or something, is a grit. The grit is just because we grew up eating oatmeal. Like I grew up eating oatmeal and cream of wheat and mapo. Do you remember that stuff? Mapo with the little cowboy on the box?
No.
Oh God. And they had malto meal and they had chocolate malto meal. And they had Zoom, like you could get chocolate Zoom. So it's like chocolate cream of wheat almost. So I grew up with hot cereal, and my favorite hot cereal as a kid was actually the really grown up hot cereal. It was like this 11 grain stuff that my mom got at the health food store. It was fantastic. Can't find it today. It's long gone. And the Bob's Red Mill just isn't quite the same. Sorry, Bob. But then you go to the South, like my ex-wife, sorry to bring her up again, but she is from the deep South. Like the grit became part of the melding of our sort of weekly routine.
The baptism of your new existence.
It's weird to me that they don't taste right with what, like with maple syrup or with like brown sugar or what it looks like should go on them. And I could never get used to eating them with eggs and cheese and stuff. It's just weird to me.
So for me, it's grits, cheese, and hot sauce. That's it. I love it. So good.
No, I tried. And the thing is they would get mad at me because, we go out for breakfast with her mom or with like her, I guess he's her stepdad kind of, or, it was her mother's husband.
Uh-huh.
And they would get grits, or I would get a meal that came with grits, or I'd just be like, let me try the grits. There's like, and so the waitress, and they're all Flo. Like literally every waitress in the South I ever dealt with was Flo from Mel's Diner, all of them. So they come over chewing the gum. They're like, what do you have, sugar pie?
Yeah.
And it's dolled up the whole thing. It's like, okay, that comes with a side of, and then it's the sides. And of course there's 75 choices and you get 4 of them.
Hush puppies, collard greens.
Give me hush puppies, give me this. And I said, I'll try the grits. And okay, sugar, we'll be right back to that. And then they come in 12 minutes later or so, and and so I'd put maple syrup or ask for brown sugar, and they just be like, you don't put maple syrup, cheese, and hot sauce. Try to be Michael Elliott for once, for God's sake. Stand up for yourself, be a man, So it was like an offense to them that I was trying to put sweet stuff on grits. And it didn't work anyway, so they were right. But I still couldn't get used to the savory.
Oh, yeah. When I was visiting my family down in North Carolina, I went to just a wonderful place that had not only grits, but it was a barbecue restaurant. But like any good barbecue restaurant, the sides were what made it. So you could get banana pudding, you could get collard greens, you could get you could get macaroni and cheese. But yeah, no, grits, that's one of my favorites right there.
We had a Winn-Dixie right next door to our condominium, and they make the best red velvet cake. I mean, a lot of times you have to order a $67 cake from out of state, Michael, to get a decent cake these days. You know that.
Oh, absolutely.
Or I had to order the lemur cake last year that was $70.
I hear that Montana is known for its cakes.
You can't just walk into Safeway or Fred Meyer or Kroger-owned property and get a decent cake these days, but at the Winn-Dixie you could. Their red velvet cake was smashing, and I ate one of them a week. For the first 3 months that I lived down there, I went through a red velvet cake a week living down there.
Well, and I had serious withdrawals when I knew I had a problem that I had to start cutting my sweet tea with regular. When I was starting to come back from vacationing there, I had to do some kind of mixing, just because I was getting I had gone too deep. Too deep, too quick.
Yeah, well, see, and that's another thing that they see you doing it. They're like, no, you don't cut sweet tea with regular tea. You cut it with Pennzoil.
Yeah, exactly.
They were always right there to let you know, how you were lacking at least half a testicle by being from up north and being a stupid Yankee.
As if they had to,
ain't broke yet.
Right, as if they had to point it out to you.
It nukes me, but so I don't. But I loved sweet tea when I lived down there. You were telling me something before we came down here. You called me real quick and you said you were going to talk to me about something. What was it? I don't remember.
Oh, well, I was reading this interesting article the other day.
Credit card. Yeah,
it was actually about the U.S. household and how it has reached a record high. We're not talking small numbers here, right? It's $17.7 trillion, according to the Federal Reserve. That's an increase of $184 billion from fourth quarter of last year to first quarter of this year. $184 billion just in the U.S. alone. Yeah, it really is. And, I didn't want to sound like that other guy on the radio who tells you about how evil you are and how you have credit cards and how you need to. No. You know who I'm talking about. I didn't want to sound like that guy.
Yeah, don't mention his
name.
Who
probably sounds like he does have a steady diet of sweet tea and banana pudding, at least on tap in his.
You're gonna trigger me, Michael. And how much do we make?
And how much do we make?
What? I'm sorry. Yeah. I have to give me 13 seconds. What?
Okay, go ahead. Dave Ramsey. Go.
You said it. What a boring concept for a show. How is that entertaining? Well, I have $68,000 in credit card debt, and I owe $32,000 on my truck and my house. I give a frick, man. I don't care about your debt load. How is this entertaining to me? I don't even get that conceptually. And then where it really misses me is how theology intertwines with paying your bills or staying out of debt.
I know.
That is just bizarre to me. But anyway.
Okay. So here's the thing, though. Like, I think part of what I'm gonna dive into, and one of the points that I'm gonna make probably does intertwine with the genesis, not no pun intended, of Dave Ramsey. Because I really do feel like the man is here to try and do good for the world, right? Because, he could tell you about all the millions he's made and off of all the dumb people.
And he does.
And he does all the time. And,
yes.
Hey, let's talk to some millionaires. Hey, you're a millionaire. Get on my show. Well,
and what great people they are.
And what great people they are and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think really what I discovered with Dave Ramsey, because I actually, early on in my marriage, I was struggling. My wife was kind of struggling with this idea of, okay, we just have a new marriage and we have, this household, and we never really got any guidance from our parents on how to set up a budget. All I knew from growing up was that credit cards were evil, gambling was wrong, and I didn't ever want to have a bunch of credit card debt. So, that was pretty much the only thing that I took with me going into the world after college. And I think that Dave Ramsey really helped to shape my financial acuity and kind of just bring it into an adult world. Because before that, I didn't really ever have to balance a budget because I just lived with my parents. And so then, you're out in the real world, and you've got a new job, you make a good living, and then it's like, well, what do I do with all this money? And I found myself, even though I had a good job, really not having a good understanding of, well, where's this money supposed to go? And I think my wife had an idea, and I had an idea, and we didn't really have anything on paper to really say, oh yeah, this is how much money we should save, and this is how much money we should be spending on these things. And so, part of my reasoning for bringing up the debt numbers that I just did was, I think that the big question that people have to ask themselves is not, oh, I need to make more money. Because I do strongly believe that if you make more money, you'll also spend more money.
It's the idea.
And I think
that's what you're taught to do.
It is a mindset that you have to get out of when you're trying to have some financial stability and some, I guess I was trying to come up with the word maturity, some just kind of budget maturity and financial maturity when it came to me discovering Dave Ramsey. And so I kind of came up with this concept that I wanted to talk to you about, which is debt reconciliation. And I'm not talking about the companies that promise to pay down all your debt into one monthly payment. Because, okay, that's another thing, too. Like, people who think of things as just a monthly payment, think about that. You're essentially setting yourself up to just always look at life as 1 month or 1 week or one paycheck or one day. And I think that is one thing that I discovered from Dave Ramsey is think about it as generations. Think about it as, where do I want to be with my finances 20, 30, 40 years from now? And what is the legacy that I want to be able to leave to my children, or in your case, what do you want to do with your time in retirement, right? I mean, even if retirement is something that you'll ever end up achieving, right? Because I really don't believe in this idea that you just hang up the coat and go away, because I don't really feel like I'll ever retire. But I do feel like I'll do other things with my time besides working a full-time job. And so, yeah, it was just this concept of, how do we reconcile our debts? And how do we, if we don't make enough money now, when will it be enough? Do you have a number? I mean, what's enough?
I don't know. What's ever enough? I mean, we live in a society of excess, and they market everything from new cars to philanthropy with daily doses of money. They say, for only the cost of a cup of coffee per day, you could feed this child, all the way to, for only 20, if you can afford $2.98 a day, you can drive this fantastic, whatever it is it amounts to over the course of a month or a year. So you're also talking to somebody with Jupiter in the second house, if we can swing to astrology for just a moment. So I really have never had to worry about money. I mean, it's not like I haven't been thin around the edges at times, but somebody with Jupiter in the second house, which I believe you also have, Mr. Elliott.
I do.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about money if you're a believer in the fact that fortune is just tied to, again, the second house, though, not just material possessions and money, which everybody wants to make it about. It's about how you bring those things to yourself. And you can't be reckless. I mean, let's make no mistake. You can't look at that dynamic astrologically and say, oh, well, I can spend everything I make and be fine. No, right. I mean, that's going to get you into trouble. But it means there's a propensity for easy come, easy go. Whatever it is that goes out, I'll replace it. And it just seems like, to a lot of people that really struggle, it seems like, you just have the best luck because you always land on your feet. People will say that to you. And that can have more to do with jobs. But I am so not prepared to retire at 50. I'm 10 years older than you, and I have no clue what I'm going to do. Now that I'm with a partner and it's looking like there's a future, now suddenly then there's an interest in making sure that at least the possessions that I have, because I don't have a lot of liquid assets at this time. Maybe that'll change. You never know. By the way, you can always send your donations in care of this podcast. We'll get you an address here to do that.
Just 5 easy payments of $5.95.
Yeah, and you can listen to the rest of this episode 10. So, but I have I have some valuable things. I guess I have some stuff, some possessions that are worldly, and they're worth a little something. They're not worth a lot. It's not like I have Renoirs or collections of antique cars or anything that's worth millions of dollars. But there's some stuff that I'd like to pass down. Somebody's going to need to take the time to meticulously go through and sell each and every piece if they really want the cash for it. But I don't know, going it alone, I guess for a while there, being a bachelor, I was just like, God, I just hope I don't die with any money in the bank, because to me, that's a waste. It's just like, I won't care because I'll be dead. But I think even floating above my body, like they say you do, I might have a tendency to look down and go, God, there's $13,000 in savings right now. I could have spent that on something to enjoy in this ridiculous experience that we call life in Western society. Or I could have donated all those Werther's Originals to those kids with rickets at the downtown thing, the home. And I never got a chance to do that, because when you're single, and I don't have a will either, I didn't at the time. So when you're single and you don't have a will and you're running around at all hours of the night like I was on state highways, you're apt to get crash and burn. The state will come in. They'll just take it. They'll just say, well, he doesn't have anybody, so we're taking it. And that would be a crime. I mean, that would be awful. But the beautiful thing is I wouldn't care. I'd be dead. I'm released from this ridiculous sideshow that we call money, all this financial stuff, because it's just a distraction from doing what we all should be doing, which is taking care of each other. I mean, it's hard for me because obviously I'm indoctrinated into a system, and it's westernized at that, and it's the United States at that. So it's the king of westernization. I mean, it's the driver of westernization. The Western world is the United States. So I'm born into this experience, and I'm raised with money because my father did very well when I was young. And so it's in some ways, my story isn't exactly like that of the Buddha, because I haven't exactly given up all of my material possessions and decided to help humanity. But I think over time, I've slowly started to let go a little piece here and there of things that are tied to the material world that are important to you. And that probably just comes with age. I would guess nobody's going to get to 50. I would hope that if you get to 50, trips around the sun, you're starting to see things for their value that isn't, you can't put a price on it. So I think we were alluding to this in a podcast a ways back. It just sickens me that you can look up any well-known person or celebrity, and the very first thing that comes up, if I want to Google, what's that chick's name who's real hot right now, the musician thing, what's her name?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, there you go. That's her. I forget sometimes. Yeah. So I Google Taylor Swift. The very first thing that's going to come up is net worth. If I Google Dudley Moore, it's going to say net worth. The guy's been dead for 25 years. It's still, people want to know, I want to know what it's worth. That is so repugnant to me. I can't tell you. I mean, the measure of human beings in this star-studded world, this glamorized glitz world that we have, is nothing more than how many illusory zeros are attached to their bank account, or how much their Beverly Hills mansion is worth, or their estate here, or their collection of fancy cars. I mean, that's really again, I am not into devils and demons, but to me, that's demonic. That's just that's the downfall of humanity in one little chestnut that's falling from the tree.
It's definitely putting an emphasis on the wrong thing. And I do kind of feel like we're kind of thinking about this in the wrong sense. I mean, I do feel like this kind of an article is almost one of those shock articles, right? You would say, in the news industry, it's one of those things where you throw it out there, and it's kind of like the news story that they do about the piece of tiramisu that costs $30,000. And it's made out of the finest cream of whatever, but it's still tiramisu at the end of the day, right? Panda
cream.
Exactly.
Yeah, they milk the pandas to do the cream.
they milk a dinosaur.
Yeah, 24-karat gold flake, and the madeleines are actually, as you said, dinosaur bones.
So I do kind of feel like it's one of those shock factors news stories, but I do also think that maybe we're thinking about it from the wrong perspective. Maybe it's not one of those things where it's how much debt do we have, but maybe it's really we have a spending problem. And it's not that we're going to somehow make more money and then we're going to have better practices with our finances. No, if anything, you're going to spend more money because you're going to be in more debt because you have the means to get into more debt, right? And the other thing that I also think is interesting about this topic is that if you do a little bit of research and you say, best debt, get out of debt, practices or whatever, you might run across a website like Dave Ramsey or somebody else, but even Dave Ramsey is going to try to sell you something. It's always these companies who are trying to sell some kind of good or service that's going to help you get out of debt, or it's going to help you manage your money. Or if you were given $20,000 and you could Google right now, what should I do with $20,000 to invest in? There's going to be a goods and service that's going to pop up immediately that's going to have some kind of a commission associated with it, that's going to have some kind of risk associated with it. I mean, it's kind of like a trap sometimes if you don't have a way to get out of it. And I will say that Dave Ramsey's books, I think, are from somebody who read them and followed the practices. I think what it did for me was it gave me an extra level of maturity to look at money differently, look at credit cards differently, and really kind of ask myself, really, and this is where it comes into the religious vein, I think, for Dave Ramsey. And I've never heard him say this, but I think what it really does, though, from the religious vein of his program, is it makes you ask yourself, what's really important in my life? And whether you're a Christian or whether you're an atheist, you're asking yourself the same question. What am I going to do with the resources that I have? And I think that's something that now that I'm getting older, and you kind of you talk about maturity and with age comes some wisdom, I'm looking at money differently from the standpoint of I've been given the opportunity to do something with these resources. And how am I going to best not only do something for myself, my family, but also to share it with other people?
Yeah, well, it's a world where, money sadly makes it go round, but not really. I mean, that's the thing. When you really look at existence again and what's truly brewing here, money has only been around, especially big money like it is now, cue the Rush song, but it's only been a player for just so long in our world and in our lives. I mean, yeah, the thought of, original money, old, really ancient coins, sure, there's monetary systems have been tried over and over again, but the idea was that you would perform, most of what has been done over the years has been trade of service. It's been trade for a skill. It's been, the old days would be, hey, I know you got those crabapple trees over there. Your wife will bake me a pie. And I'm a farrier, so I'm going to shoe your horse because I have the skill that you don't possess to do that. And it's a nice trade. We get a sweet pie. You get your horse's shoes done. Let's make a trade. And then suddenly the problem that money brings into the equation is, well, now one of those two things is vastly more valuable than the other. And there's no explanation as to why, except for these hard and crude and cruel supply and demand rules and things of that nature. So,
well, it is definitely supply and demand is what makes our economy run.
Well, we have people in the world through whatever's fault that it is, and it doesn't really matter. But the bottom line is that you and I will not go hungry tonight, and we probably won't for the rest of our lives, God willing. I've never gone to bed hungry in my life. My mother did. And she knows what it's like. And she said it hurts, pardon me, but like a motherfucker. She said it hurts like you wouldn't believe. Hunger hurts. And so when I hear them doing this desensitizing with, it's not hunger anymore. People aren't hungry. It's food insecurity. What the fuck is that? What is food insecurity? I'm not insecure about lemons and pancakes and brisket. I'm not insecure about food. I like food. We all do. We need to consume it to stay biologically vital. So I don't like the game that they run on us because to me, it's right in front of your face. And I just watched Trading Places, which is a fabulous comedy. I recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's old, like me, but.
Well, circling back to Dave Ramsey, though, I think that's where the theological bend comes in, though, is that it's what are we putting an emphasis on as a society? What are we putting an emphasis on as a person, right? And are you that focused on the materialistic things in the world? Because at the end of the day, those really aren't. No, but if you do look at what he is preaching, it's not that at all, right? So,
yeah, but he's not walking it, and that's my problem with him. He's not walking it.
He in and of himself has then now created an industry out of preying on people who don't have good financial sense. That's all there is to it. He discovered that, hey, there's a ton of dumb people out there who are living paycheck to paycheck and have 4 RVs and 5 snowmobiles, and they can't even make tomorrow's rent payment because they have so many other payments that are cannibalizing their resources.
I mean, you're going like to the depths of you're going to a dark place with me. I mean, I'll just come right out and say it. Dave Ramsey is one of my least favorite human beings on the planet. I love him like I would anybody else, but I think he stands for the wrong things. Paying your credit cards, not getting into debt, fine, that's wonderful. To me, it goes without saying. If he's going to help some people, that's great. But the things that I heard when I was having to listen to that program as an employee of a radio station where it was on in the background were despicable to me. He boasts about his material wealth and makes people, he's creating a desire for the very thing that he's telling people to avoid. These orations about how he lives in one of the finest neighborhoods in Tennessee. And, the rich always just get the worst of people. They think the worst. These are some of the finest people I've ever known. Come on, man. I mean, give me a break. If you were truly about walking what you really are putting behind you, which is this biblical text, this context, you would be doing it the right way, and you would not live on that hill like a king. It would not be like that.
I also think, and I see what you're saying, and I also think that it comes from an area in our society of these holier-than-thou people who want to try to put on their religion as if it's an overcoat, and essentially dangle it in front of you and say, well, look how much of a better person I am because of it.
He's a plutocrat.
Yeah, he is.
He's a classic example. He's the shining example. He is the exemplar on his own money. He's the head on his own currency of a plutocrat. I am just a little bit better than all of you because I have more money than you do. And here's the last thing I want to say on Dave Ramsey, because I don't want to talk about him.
No.
Because he angers me.
We'll move on.
But I will say this. The man has been loaded and lost it all 3 times.
Yeah.
He had everything. He built all this empire of this wealth, lost it all. Built it all again, lost it all again. Built it all again, lost it all again, and now he is where he is. So if you ask me, he ain't getting it. He's been given one chance after another to go broke and go, Dave, what do you think's really important now that you've had it all and lost it all? Well, he didn't get it, so let's do it again.
So do you think Dave Ramsey has Jupiter in his second house? I bet he does.
I don't know. I think Dave Ramsey detests the idea that he has an astrological chart because I'm sure he considers it to be just demonic worship and evil and all those things they try to do and whatever.
He's the sign of the devil.
Truly one of my least favorite human beings ever. And so we went into interesting territory today, and I did pretty good because
you did really well, actually. I just got every time I hear Dave Ramsey's voice, though, I always think of that guy on that X-Files episode where they're like dancing with snakes, and he's like the rain god, and he like shows up to the crops or to the field that's all dry, and he like does this dance, and then the rains come down.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to say this. I mean, so getting off of DR's stuff and just getting on to Jack Hansen stuff, because, you know, you sort of imparted your philosophy with this. And I'm not the best person because I can't be a neutral observer because I possess credit cards and I owe balances on some of them. They're instruments that I use because they allow me to purchase things today and put it off until paying tomorrow. And that's the whole idea of that, basically, is I want this today and I'll pay for it tomorrow. And in some instances, like I just bought a new car. How the hell am I going to afford to drive anywhere unless I can buy a new car? I have to have credit. I don't have enough money to not finance a car at this particular juncture, you know, of my life. So maybe I'm not the best person to talk to about this because I can't be a neutral observer because I'm in the game. But credit cards are sort of the thorn in the side that we make them out to be because they do dangle the carrot. They are responsible for, I need these things to feel validated. I need these things to feel like I can be almost as good as Dave on the hill and the other plutocrats that live next door to him in his cushy little neighborhood there. So I've got to be like him. So I've got to go out and acquire as many of these things as I can, but I can't do it because I'm just not rich like the bastard is right now. So I'm going to borrow to do it. So on the one hand, on the left hand, you know, evil, that's probably going too far. But, you know, is it a bad idea? Yeah. Credit is one of those things that is a temptation because we want to buy these things not necessarily for the right reasons. We want to buy these things to keep up with the Daves. But I will say
you
this.
Just came up with a new one. Keep up with the Daves. I like
that. Yeah, well, that's what we should all be doing. But I will say this, much like I love, and we've got to get into this at some point, we will, but much like I just revere the Chinese for having absolutely no regard for intellectual property, even though I probably would be pissed if they ever did it to me, I guess, but I don't know. We're not there yet, so we'll see. I will say that credit cards in some ways do tend to point out how ridiculous all of this really is. Because to me, the banks are already so wealthy. I mean, the interest rates on these instruments to charge it are outrageous. I mean, even good interest rates anymore are 18 or 19%. Those are good interest rates.
Right.
30 and 35 isn't unheard of. Those are like VAT taxes in Norway, you know, but they get something for the return on that. You know, I mean, in this case, you're literally just handing it over to them, and then the late fees and then all the other things that are associated with it. So I will say this, even though I don't think it's cool, it's kind of okay with me sometimes to have a little snicker at the fact that there are single guys and gals who have credit cards and they owe $150,000 and they die in a skiing accident on the very boat that they just leveraged for 37%. And the bank isn't going to see a penny, because what it does to me is it underscores how ridiculous the whole thing is from top to bottom. So that's what I will say on both hands. Does Jack Hansen think it's a good idea to go buy all these things because you should keep up with everybody and have all this material stuff? No, but I'm surrounded by material stuff, so I'm a hypocrite in saying that, because some of it I've charged and some of it isn't paid off yet. So is it cool to rack up 50 grand and then go die and stiff the bank? No, but at the same time, fuck the bank. You know that? To hell with the bank. I kind of like the fact that that happens. But what's the real answer? The real answer is probably just desiring something completely different, getting away from these desires altogether. But as Madonna said, it's a material world, and she's a material girl. So
yeah, and as South Park said,
he took his job. He took it, girl. Took it there.
That's what Dave Ramsey is saying, right?
I was just going to say, that kind of sounds like Dave Ramsey with a mouthful of grits that have brown sugar in them.
Oh.
Who sent you?
Yeah. Who did send you, Jack Hansen?
Who did send me? I don't know. Like I said, and by the way, wherever, and I'll do this anytime that I flame somebody, wherever Dave is right now, God bless you, Dave. Oh, I love you. I really do.
Well,
I hate your guts. I don't like you at all. And I wish you'd go away in like a popular sense. But God love you, man. You are a brother of mine. And just like anybody else, I love you. So whenever I am hating on somebody, just know that at the core, that's one thing Jack Hansen understands. We were just talking about this over dinner last night. Love everybody and then utilize the privilege, the gift that is getting the choice to like them or not.
Right.
But love everybody, because that's the propagation of the magic. If you don't love the son of a bitch for just being here and doing his best, whatever that may be, even if it's the worst human being on the planet, you are failing him and yourself. Love everybody, and then you get the privilege of liking them or not. That's your gift. So,
well, and we can all sit here and hate on the capitalism and capitalistic system that we live in. Or what you can do is you can say, you know what, Dave Ramsey is a pretty smart guy. He's figured it out. He's playing the game just like everyone else is. And the guys who have figured out that Americans are so dumb that they're going to have 4 snowmobiles, 2 RVs, and 3 boats in their driveway are just going, okay, this is a business model right here. I can make money off of this, and I don't have to live, because I can just live off the fact that these guys are so dumb that they're always going to have debt.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I mean, we're covering a lot of like major territory today, but I talked about you with this one of the last times we got together at your house, which is there a perfect model for a society in the world? I don't think so. I mean, because again, all models depend on everybody playing their part and everybody not becoming a criminal and everybody not being lazy and, you know, committing those 7 sins that we talked about a few episodes back that are so interesting to kind of look at. But as I told you, I'm into Smurfism personally. I think the Smurf village, and I know it's laughable, but, you know, the guy that Peo, the guy that created the Smurfs, I think he had it down. I think it's as close as we're ever going to get, because the thing about the Smurfs is, first of all, there weren't 8 billion of them. But the handful that lived in those little mushrooms, the thing they had down to me was, okay, when they needed to build a dam or a dike to make sure that the village didn't get flooded, and Gargamel didn't sniff them out because the mushrooms would rot from underneath or whatever the case may
be. That evil cat that he had.
Azrael. Handy obviously is going to take point on like designing the dam because he has a proclivity for engineering. So Handy takes the lead role for sure on that, but it doesn't mean he does any more of the labor, because every single Smurf shows up and passes a brick to each other, and they all sing la 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 as they build this dam together, and then they get it done efficiently, quickly. They get it done with a smile on their face, and they whistle zippity-doo out their asses and go home at the end of the day and enjoy the new dam. That's more like the model that we should have, but we don't. How do we get Smurfism? God knows, because we got this huge mess. But I like Smurfism. I'm on the side of Smurfism. That's like the government that I want to be a part of personally, because everybody pitches in. And at the end of the day, to me, how can you not feel great about everybody pitching in for a little piece of the infrastructure that you enjoy every day? Imagine actually going out and having to like help pay the section of the road that you drive for just a few hours. They're like, nope, we're going to get this road built with the help of everybody. All you have to do, Jack, is show up, and your time today is like 98 minutes, and we just need you to like pack a couple of bags around, hand them to some guys that are stronger than you, and maybe get out a shovel and kind of whack some asphalt down. That's all we need from you, and then your part is done. And then I get to drive in that road, and that little section I get to say in the future, I helped build this thing. Because we don't get to do that with our taxes. We can say it, well, my taxes built this road. Come on. That's about as like disjointed as it gets. That's about as non-material as it gets. The people that actually get to build this stuff. And then again, we go back to, I make $25 million for scratching my nuts and throwing a football for a few quarters every year. And you build dams, you build roads, and you make a fraction of that. You make a decent living, all things considered, but you don't make what I make for scratching my nuts and throwing a football for a couple quarters every week during seasonally.
I think if there's one thing I learned from the pandemic is how underutilized or how undervalued some of our healthcare workers are too. And the ridiculous hours that nurses and doctors put in. And I think everybody always wants to say, oh, doctors, they've got it made. I mean, think about how hard that job is, right? And how much studying you have to do and how much responsibility something like that is. I mean, you have people's lives in your hands, and it's an important job, just like a lot of other jobs in our society is as well. But, I do think that you have a point, too, with that. We all do our part in society. And the government at the end of the year, we get to pay a bill, right, in the form of taxes.
Well, just again, the problem with capitalism is that when the behemoths of the capitalistic world, the doctor may in fact want to do the exploratory surgery that's going to cost $1.7 million to save the kid's life. It's the insurance company that's sitting on the money that's going to shut it down. That's the problem. It's not a one-off. It's not unusual. It's not an aberration. It's not something that pops up every once in a while and, it's an anomaly. It happens every single day. Someone suffers and dies needlessly, senselessly, because someone else needs to get rich and they're not helping their bottom line, period. And that's a problem for me. Now, what do I do about it personally? I don't know. This podcast, just to say it, just so that maybe it turns a light on with people. Do I donate more of my time? What do I do? Renounce all my worldly possessions? I'm still looking out for the answer for what Jack Hansen does for his little part in helping to fix that. But that is a problem for me being here. And it's part of why, dare I say, or sound too angelic, I feel like I was sent here to maybe help things out a little bit. But I'm still trying to piece together this nightmare myself. And the thing is, while it's a nightmare, it's also the most beautiful, amazing experience that I could ever hope to have. This is where all the action is. That's the one thing about planet Earth and humanity. We are fucked up, but this is where all of the action is, man. If you're a soul, this is where you want to be.
There's nothing else happening on all those other planets.
Things are happening here, man. So, I will say that.
Well, I think you just nailed it too. That's why we bring up some of these current events, and that's why we bring up some of these topics, is because it is the cornerstone of our podcast, and it helps us interweave some of these really big picture ideas that we like to talk about here at the cafe. Well, we're starting to get some eyeballs from the waitresses again, and it's time for us to leave.
Oh, it's not those kind of eyeballs. You always get me excited. I'm just thinking like, yeah, they're finally checking me out. I'm wearing like my favorite zebra stripe shirt, and they just not doing anything.
I was listening to one of the other episodes, and you had mentioned something about the tiger-clad pants that you bought because you were on a...
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many other tiger-clad things Jack Hansen owns.
We may never know. They're my Ed Hardy board shorts. It's the only thing I've ever purchased because a celebrity was wearing them. And it's just Jeffrey Downs from my favorite band, Asia. There's a picture of me with him in those board shorts. So when I went home, I'd seen those before online. I was like, I'm buying those damn board shorts. I'm going to, for one time in my life, I'm going to be like somebody else and like it.
Even Jack Hansen has his moments of weakness.
I know. Never live it down. I peed in those shorts. First thing, too. Christened them.
Ooh, I love the power drums. That is one instrument I never was able to master. Power drums.
Power drums.
What are we listening to?
The Big Money, of course.
That's fitting, isn't it?
Well,
so. Dave Ramsey, we all just want to send our love to you. We love what you do. Kinda, no. What was it that you said, Jack, in the segment?
I don't love what he does. I will accept loving him as a human being at the end of the day.
Okay, we love you as a human being, Dave Ramsey.
This will be the last time we ever talk about you, too, so enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy your time. All right. We'll see you later, Jack.
See ya.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own existence brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.